All right, so firstly, thanks all for gathering today and for joining us to learn more about this offer from IBM, I guess, around Watson Assistant. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is in just a moment, and how, in particular, that Watson Assistant tool could be used to help local authorities respond to the community call. So my name, for those that don't know me, and there's lots on the call that don't know me, is Ronan Dalton, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer for IBM in Ireland. This morning, I guess, what I'll take you through is a little bit of background around Watson as a technology set, and then narrow that into the tool that is Watson Assistant, and then describe how that can be applied to challenges that I guess are being encountered across the globe at the moment with increasing volumes of queries and calls to various contact centers off the back of the global pandemic that is, COVID-19. But to set the scene, and I do this because I don't know everyone on the call, and I don't know where everyone's at in terms of their knowledge of some of the technology I'll talk about today, to set the scene around Watson. So Watson, from an IBM perspective, it's really, I guess, the brand that we use to encompass all of the AI solutions or offerings that we have from IBM. So when I say AI, I'm talking artificial intelligence. Watson as a technology, I guess, became center stage for IBM back in, I think it was around 2011, 2012, when we took what was a research project from IBM out into, I guess, a new arena that is the game show world, where we pitted, this AI that we built, this questions and answers solutions that ran across, what we'd call, collectively call a supercomputer, but across a bunch of, IBM power machines. We deployed, the system to compete with humans in a game show, and demonstrate that we could, with natural language processing capabilities, with the ability to ingest, and not only ingest, but I guess interpret and understand, documents from multiple different sources, beat humans when it came to the Jeopardy game show in the US. I don't know how many are familiar with Jeopardy. I don't think I was before this story came to light, but there's quite a few nuances around the game show as well, and the ways in which the questions are phrased to contestants. In fact, the questions tend to be answers, and the contestants need to pose the right question for the answer. Anyway, we, as IBM, came main stage with AI, with Watson, around 2011, 2012, and then went on a journey to take what was this AI that we built on what I called, a set of supercomputers, or collectively a supercomputer, to democratize AI and start to deliver it in a way that it could be consumed off of our cloud platform as a discrete set of services. And it's some of those services, I guess, that we'll talk a little bit more about today, and how they can help with challenges that are being posed by the community call. A little bit of a shout out as to how Watson is received in the market and has been adopted across the globe as a market leader in the AI space, with some numbers to, I guess, attest to the uptake of the Watson solutions across the board. And I guess what's interesting is in this bottom right, it's not quite a quadrant, but in that bottom right corner, you'll see that one of the areas in which Watson has been particularly strong is in the call or the contact center transformation space. And it's essentially, employing that AI that has natural language capability that can, interpret the spoken word in the way in which it could be deployed on the end of a phone line to either assist, an agent that's addressing a question on the spot, or in some instances allow the person who would otherwise take the call to something more value add, and allow for the AI or the virtual assistant to take the call. So we've seen a lot of uptake in Watson in the contact center space. Should have thought of this at the outset, but I don't know, Mark or Stuart or some of the guys on the line will steer me in terms of questions. I'm really comfortable taking questions through the course of this conversation, although I don't know with Teams if that'll get clunky if people are unmuting or muting, if folks want to hold to the end. Mark, what's your preference? I'd welcome them, but I don't want to have us stumbling over the technology. So
It'd be great to have questions as you go, but I think it might distract the presentation. So possibly if people could wait till the end, there'll be plenty of time. And if there's a lot of detail required, very, very happy to set up calls after this over the coming days to just go granularly or to expand to other members of the organization. But yeah, I'd say wait till the end, Robert.
Sorry, Ronan, Kevin here. Just as a suggestion, people can use the messaging function, the meeting chat, so that if they have questions at a specific point, they can record them there, just in case people tend to forget what the question is towards the end, and then you will have a written transcript that you can actually look at and answer at the end. It might be a way to make sure we capture the questions at the right time.
Brilliant.
If anybody's unclear, as you can see on Ronan's screen, there's the little toolbar, the little conversation dialogue bubble opens up the meeting chat on the side of the page to allow you to type in there, and that will be shared with the entire group. There you go.
That's a great idea, Kevin. Thank you. And actually,
no problem at all.
I wasn't sure whether this window was showing, so it is. So that then I need to bring this one down.
Go back to the full.
Yeah, full screen. Magic. So setting the scene, I guess, Watson, AI, Jeopardy, lots of adoption in different domains, different spaces, contact center being one where we've seen a lot of adoption over the last number of years. And then, let's bring this down to, before we bring it down, let's look at the technology in particular from a Watson perspective that is used to support that contact center transformation, I guess, that I just described or called out. So I used the phrase a moment ago, we democratized AI and we broke down what was delivered on supercomputers into a set of discrete services delivered off of cloud platforms. And what that really means is that we've broken down that questions and answer systems that, if you think of it, needs to be able to, listen to the spoken word, be able to take spoken word and transcribe it into written text, because that's the way other systems would tend to or prefer to work with that data, to then be able to, search systems that are being pre-trained with answers and then be able to surface the appropriate answer from those systems and then be able to speak that answer back. We've broken each of those elements down into discrete services, and the particular service that we talk about from the ability to train a service on a domain of information, of knowledge that's really structured as a set of questions and answers is the Watson Assistant tool, right? So it's a tool, and I'll show you this a little later, but it's a tool that we use to train Watson to, one, be able to interpret, I guess, a set of utterances, right? So a statement or a question that's being posed to the assistant, so to be able to interpret that, to understand that, to get the context of that, and then in turn be able to take an appropriate action off the back of that. So it's where we train the AI to, one, be able to interpret that utterance, but then two, to be able to provide an appropriate response in turn off the back of the utterance that's being shared. And we do that through, the bottom element of the screen here, through the ability to create skills, and in turn to be able to search other engines, and we surface that capability to the left through multiple different channels, right? So we're all probably familiar with working with AI assistants, virtual assistants through text-based interfaces on websites as chatbots. We whittle them down to chatbots, but with the Watson Assistant solution, we can integrate that across multiple different channels, where you've got that same body of information, that trained corpus made available through the Watson Assistant engine, but that can be surfaced through website, through telephony integration, so that you can speak to the bot through other channels like Facebook Messenger or Slack or WhatsApp, so it's essentially, it's an omni-channel solution that can be used to address a variety of different questions and in turn pose the appropriate answers to those questions. So I go through all of that really just to give you some context on, the offer that IBM is making to clients at the moment, and as to how we can help, and in particular on this call around the community call, how IBM might be able to help. So context, gosh, we all know this. We're all living it right now, and we're all probably dialed in from various different locations, home offices, or some of us having to go into the office. But so COVID-19 really changed the world right now. A lot of different challenges posed by the pandemic, and organizations like yourselves, local authorities, are being tasked with surfacing information in a timely manner, in an accurate manner, to citizens who are concerned, who have needs, who are struggling in some instances and need help, right? And I think that's part of the underlying theme of the community call and how that was set up, right? So these challenges, and as I say, like off the back of these challenges that are seen, you guys I'm sure are all very familiar with this, the launch of the community call there now over a month ago, and the way in which the local authorities have been asked to step up and really support this countrywide initiative. So the ways in which many of you are addressing that challenge is through a repurposing maybe of folks that have been taking calls for other reasons, or actually maybe even just getting new staff in place to take calls around the queries that are coming through from citizens in relation to the community call. And actually, do you know what, these questions here are probably not what you're seeing come through the community call around. These are very much coronavirus related questions, but you're more so seeing questions that are specific to the services that are being offered, or to the volunteer services that are being made available. So if I could ask that everybody goes on mute, maybe somebody that's in the car has just either joined or come off mute and is, yay, great, thank you. So off the back of community call, I'm sure you're all seeing an increase in the volume of calls and queries that are coming through, and those will be impacting an existing contact center, or maybe in some instances have required that a specific set of folks being assigned to address those queries. So that Watson Assistant technology that I just spoke to a moment ago could prove to be really helpful and useful in this scenario, where you train an assistant that is an AI to field some of the questions that are being posed to the humans and addressed by the humans at the moment on these calls in these contact centers. And part of what IBM is positioning with our clients at the moment is that for those that are seeing change in business circumstance that's being driven off the back of COVID-19 related challenge, is to provide assistance to get a Watson Assistant instance stood up and essentially make the cloud services available at no charge for this 90-day period, and assist with the initial setup to get the virtual assistant in place, trained, and fielding the questions that you're seeing today in a way that they're being addressed by the assistant. Before I go into this, how IBM can help, let's take a little look then at maybe what one of these assistants looks like. And as Mark mentioned at the outset, I did pull together a quick demonstration around around Watson Assistant and how that might look. So let me bring this down here and move my little guy across here. Actually, every time I select that, it brings that up, so that's okay. So I just for the hell of it, I took the Fingal County Council page, and I thought, maybe where, on that website there might be an appropriate space to have what would be a virtual assistant surface. I just need to stop clicking that. Found this page. So I took a screen grab and built that into a static HTML website that's actually just running on my local machine here. But what I've done is integrate with that site that's running on my local machine this launcher that is essentially a launcher that, when selected, will launch a live instance of Watson Assistant. So why don't I click on that, and when I do that, I get this community response bot, right, that's loaded into the page here. And again, you're all probably very familiar with working with these virtual assistants on various different sites. So with the bot that I built, there's just only a handful of queries that are built into this in order for it to be able to address. But what you see is a custom kind of welcome message. It's light, but this could be more detailed, and this could include links off to additional sources of information if it were appropriate. But essentially, an opportunity for us to say, hey, look, we're here to help, and it's something that we can, support you with. And so if you wanted to ask a question of the bot, I think, some of the sample questions that I saw come through might have been around, can I book oh my goodness, fix that typing. Can I book a taxi with the service? And, or maybe with my terrible spelling, hopefully it'll still get it, and it does, right? So our natural language processing engine, that is Watson, interpreted my misspelled query, but nonetheless a query that said, I was looking to book a taxi, and said, no, that's not what we're here for, and is there anything else that we can help you with? And then I might ask, could I contact a community worker? And if I were to pose that question to our assistant, it says, yeah, thanks for your query, but you might want to look at our website for more information here. And with that, then I could go off and look at the website and see, the respective sets of information that are made available off of, discrete sites that include the accurate response to the query. So I mean, you get that, essentially there is a virtual assistant that can be surfaced on a website that's text-based, that can be trained with queries that can be addressed, and that can be surfaced really, really quickly in a way that it's available to start taking questions from end users in no time. And then actually, when I say in no time, I thought maybe what I'd do is take you through really quickly just some of the plumbing or some of the work behind building one of these bots, not going into a tech deep dive by any means, but just have a look at some of the services that are available on IBM Cloud that I've used to train this bot so that you can get a feel for what's involved yourself. So to build one of these assistants, then, off of our IBM Cloud platform, we have a Watson Assistant service, and in there, so if I was to click this launch Watson Assistant, it would take me to this page, but I happened to just do this a few moments before the call, so I'll leave it open here. And it's in here actually that you can see the ways in which I've built the assistant. So essentially, the assistant that you just saw, if I click on this assistance tab here, is this guy, right? This community call assistant that I started on yesterday evening, and that has been trained with a skill that has literally just a couple of intents that I've trained it to be able to address. And it's those intents that you'll see I created 29 minutes ago and 31 minutes ago, just before the call, are the ones that allow the bot to be able to interpret the different ways in which a question could be posed to it. And it's that that allows us, with a natural language classification engine behind the assistant, to determine that this is the flavor of query or question that I've been asked, and here's how it might be addressed, or less of the how it might be addressed, but what the query is. So we have this concept of intents, and then we have a dialogue that strings these together in a way that we then can match the question that's being asked with an appropriate response. And you might see here, look, this is the answer that you just saw a moment ago in the demo that I just built. And actually, if I were to be training this AI system further, I can use this try it feature here and ask live in context, rather than having to step out and look at a bot deployed on a particular site. How it's working. And so can I order taxi? You see, but oops, and even with that terrible spelling, it didn't get it. Actually, it did. It got, even with my terrible spelling, and this is a correct. I put in can I order a taxi, but it should have been can I order a taxi, and it picked it up. So, all right, good. Thank you, Watson, for bailing me out there with my poor spelling. Yeah, so you'll see, this is the way in which the bot's trained. And what's interesting here, I guess, is that, whilst we're training an AI system, there's no element of or knowledge of AI required here at all, right? It's an interface that's being built for line of business users, those that have the expertise in the queries and the appropriate responses, to be able to go in and build out, the set of intents and the appropriate answers, and orchestrate those through this dialogue interface here. So it's a very straightforward and easy to do. Out of the box, we do have this content catalog here, and that's for a set of pre-built intents that could be used to build out your virtual assistant in a way that, well, you don't need to go and train the intents as you might otherwise. Some of them that might be of interest here are, maybe less so. I don't know, but IBM is, in particular trained a set of intents around COVID-19 and for those maybe that are addressing queries in particular around what's COVID and school shutdowns and other things, right? So some pre-trained intents. But to be honest, I would imagine that for those that are looking in the community call context to be availing of this solution and of this offer, you'd be looking at building custom intents and building them out with the interface that's available here, and training them in this manner and stringing them together in this dialogue here. To integrate into a website like is terribly easy, and very straightforward, in a way that actually to stand up, one of these assistants on a site, we provide this web chat integration here, and it's really just a handful of lines of script that need to be included in a HTML page in order for the bot to be rendered and accessible, So this script here is all that I've simply injected into, I mentioned that this is a static HTML page, it's simply just that script that I copied into the HTML behind this page in order for us to have what looks like, or what is, a Watson Assistant instant running on a site here in a way that, we can address questions and queries. The bot can be stylized or styled. The bot can be styled, again, quite easily through the Watson UI. I have the opportunity to change colors for the header and for the speech bubbles, and throw in a logo as well to make it look more closely like the website on which it's being surfaced, right? So albeit that the assistant is running on, or is being served from, rather, an IBM Cloud platform, it can look quite closely to, or look quite close to your existing styles on your website, and that's quite easily done through the customization UI that's available here. In terms of uptake of the Watson Assistant, there's been a number of folks that have stood up Watson Assistant instances in the context of what I call out here as or here maybe the challenge, and folks looking to either serve questions around COVID in particular, or stuff specific to their business or organization. We've seen the NHS in Wales take us up on building and deploying a virtual assistant for them. We have seen health authorities across Europe, actually in Poland, Czech Republic, take us up on the offer too, and a number of different states in the US actually have built bots. I didn't pre-can the URLs, but I think hopefully if I type this in, it's already up here and nothing. Yeah, good. This is one that just stands out, springs to mind as being a bot that is, live on a public site. I simply chose this US one because the URL is one that I would remember off the top of my hand. You'll see this launcher here for the assistant, and that's just those couple of lines of script that are being included in the page that renders here. I click the launcher, and in this instance they've included a disclaimer. Okay, so I can accept that disclaimer, but you'll see then, this is looking very much like that bot that I have here, although it's a little bit more jazzy with a little Watson animated GIF there, I guess, or animated image there, but same style of interface. I can ask natural language questions. Actually, this particular bot can address questions in more than one language, so it provides the ability to work with the assistant either through English or Spanish. I won't dare the Spanish, but I'll give the English a go. And you can see with this particular assistant, I guess the style that's been employed by the folks that built this one is that you're driven initially through a button style interface rather than natural language queries, but I'm sure at some point it opens up to, okay, so I can ask about business closures, and then I actually don't know what this is being trained on, but given that it's a COVID bot, I imagine it has one of those standard intents of like, what is COVID-19, I would hope. It's been trained on the standard stuff as well that I mentioned that we include with the Watson Assistant there too, and that same style as well of response and link off to what I imagine is an authoritative source of information for the for the district or for the state in that instance to field the question, rather than try and address everything inside the bot, but point off to the as I say, the authoritative source of information. So that's a quick look at the assistant, and a quick look at one that stood up as a sample on the Fingal site. It's just a demo there at the moment, and then to the slides. So in terms of what we're positioning here is IBM is here to help. We are putting on the table an offer of access to the technology behind these virtual assistants at no charge for a period of 90 days. There's just looking at the detail here, the offer of the pre-trained intents. I actually think for community call you may not be touching off many of those. You'll most likely use or need to create specific intents that would address the queries that you're seeing off the back of the community call, and we'll work with you to build that, right? So we're not just saying here you have access to the technology, but we're also saying that we'll be working with you to train the AI, but then also train the people to help them train the AI, right? So impart skills to the folks in your organizations to be able to take this once that 90-day period is up of hand holding and of getting you set up and take you to a place where you can keep at this beyond that initial phase. I think at that point, so there's kind of what this looks like in terms of a project outline and the partnership that's mentioned, and actually one of the things that I didn't explicitly call out, although I did mention in the context of Watson Assistant, is that there is an option to look to build out one of these virtual assistants with not only the text-based interface, but also with a voice-enabled bot, so integrate into a telephony system. But this is maybe an expected timeline around us working with our clients or organizations where at day 90 you have the opportunity to say you don't want this anymore, and thanks IBM, it's been a great journey, but we're good. Or if you wanted to keep this running beyond, then you would take ownership. We'd initially start by standing up the services and helping you train them, getting some of the content from you and getting it started and built initially. But then if you wanted to take this, then you take ownership of this toward the latter end of the 90 days and take it beyond there. So with that, maybe I'll look at the text window, the messaging window, see if there's been any questions that have come through, and see if I can address those for you now. And if there's any others, actually, by all means, jump in. I see I have one there around work on the back end is required in order to fulfill all possible sets of infos answers. To get one of these virtual assistants up and running in a way that can address kind of low-hanging fruit without any systems integration, right, but only just some scripts to inject essentially the assistant on a website, you can do that in genuinely a matter of days, and then the process beyond that low-hanging fruit and addressing further sets of questions is all around how intricate and detailed those questions are, the nuances between the questions in terms of being able to identify them and distinctly so that you can provide a distinct answer. And that's where maybe some additional work starts to come into play in terms of training the AI system. So it's an answer that I don't like giving, but it's almost like it depends, right? It depends on the volume of queries, the nuances and the ways in which the queries are asked, the closeness in the queries and the distinct nature of the responses will all dictate the complexity of building the bot beyond just what I call the low-hanging fruit, but the low-hanging fruit that are frequently asked questions, that are discrete, that have well-defined answers, can be built into the tool and deployed to a website in days. Yeah, okay. With that then, I mean, if folks have any other questions that they'd like to ask, you can by all means open your mic and jump in and fire away.
Hi, Ron and Liz here from Fingal County Council.
Hi,
I
Liz.
just want to clarify. So to start with the COVID-19 bot, is it 15 questions to integrate into it?
Yes, but the COVID-19 stuff, that's really, yeah, I think there's let's just go to the assistant here and go to the skill and go to the content catalog. And I think it said in the slide 15, didn't it? But then how many are here? 10 are listed here, right? So maybe there's another handful that need to be added to this. But with these, right? So with this, Liz, I mean, these are super quick to add, you know. So I can go and I might have even shown you this, I don't know, in a demo before. But if I or I've probably done this so many times, I'm not sure who I've shown it to, but you know, I can quickly say add that to the skill, right? And now I've got these intents, as we call them, that have been added to the skill, and so I can very quickly go to my dialogue node here, and I can, you know, in a matter of moments, you know, add a node below, add a node that's about a COVID description, call it that one, right? And then if I go to something like the HSE site, which I tend to have as one of my favorites these days, and if I go here, I can get like what is an authoritative answer on that, let's say from the HSC, drop it in and have that array available and ready to run, like in just moments, you know.
Okay, that's grand. And if I don't know if you received the questions that I forwarded on to Mark, the question and answers. Mm-hmm. When you have them when will we have this up and running?
Yeah, so on Fingal one, let's take that one, given the wide audience of this session, to the side if we could, Liz, and have a chat on that and on next steps in particular there. So I know, you know, we've started to work the internal process to be able to get, you know, the access to the systems that are required in order to get this up and running, and that's progressing nicely. And then once we have that, then it's a matter of just getting those queries in, and that shouldn't be a large body of work, but let's.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, thank you. Yeah, Catherine asks, that's a good one. What's the cost of the system following the trial? And I know that I've got some colleagues on the line that can help with some of the pricing elements, so we can address that in just a moment. But then you asked as well, Catherine, what are the integration capabilities? So I'll while I have the floor, I'll just take that one. So you can, from a variety of different channels that you can integrate with the assistant. So there's kind of like what do you want the assistant to integrate with, and what can integrate with the assistant. So let's do with what can integrate with the assistant. So the different channels that you can come in through are, you know, telephony, web-based, and then, you know, other, I don't know, is it right to say proprietary channels, but, you know, things like a Facebook Messenger or Slack or WhatsApp. And so those can be different, you know, channels with which you integrate with the assistant. You know, the answers that you train the assistant on are the same, whether they're delivered over the phone, through a web-based bot, through Slack, through WhatsApp, right? So all of those channels inbound, and then the possibilities to you know, for what can the assistant integrate with are very open, right? In terms of very open in terms of if a system that you're looking to integrate with can be called via published API that is exposed as a REST API, which is how we typically integrate, then, you know, the assistant can make a call out to that system in a way that, I don't know, you've got a system of record that has, you know, a particular status on an application, let's say, for example, and you wanted someone to be able to query a status of an application. Well, you know, you can do that. You can make a call out to another system, get the status of the application back, and return it back into the system. But the majority of those integrations are integrations that take place via REST API. So if that external system can be called via REST API, then it's one that can be integrated very quickly and easily with the assistant. It's not restricted to only web or REST API. It's the most straightforward way. There are other possibilities, but I'd say that that's the one that we'd look at most likely and off the bat. I could just answer Catherine's query then. Is there Rory or is it Gerard that might field just the cost question following the trial?
Yeah, Gerard here. Hi, Catherine. So in relation to cost, we can give you a estimate. It's based on how much interaction there is with the virtual assistant. So we can give you an approximate cost once we see those figures, if that addresses the question.
Yeah, I think, Catherine, like the services that are provided here, the way in which they're billed beyond the initial 90 days is on a consumption basis. So if you're seeing lots of volume of uptake on your assistant, then, you'll see an incrementally higher cost versus, it's on a consumption type model. Yeah. And I see Tommy has a question then, reference site for the voice integration side of it. I have a demo of a voice, so a public one, Tommy, off the top of my head, I don't have. I have stood up on a number of instances, phone numbers. I have a Twilio number, so Twilio telephony as a service offering available, and I have a phone number on that if you dial it, you can call and talk to Watson. If you wanted to, I'm trying to think, is there a public one around?
The Revenue Commissioners has a voice integration completed.
Yeah, no, absolutely, they do.
So that's part of, and Tommy, that's part of their property registration division. So I'm not sure if you don't get it initially, you have to go through a number of different channels to eventually hit it, but there is a local one completed.
Yeah, and if you wanted to have a number to just have a chat with Watson, Tommy, at some point, I'd be glad to share that number that I have myself and that demo that I have myself. I should put this here, shouldn't I? So if you wanted to do that, that'd be cool. I'll just fire up the chat again, see if anyone else has come through with a query. No, Tommy's is the last. Anyone else? Any more for any more, as an old boss of mine used to say. Yeah.
Hi, Ronan. It's Marion from Fingal.
Hi, Marion.
Just from the community support end of things, my staff deal with the phones. If they're not getting the answers from the chatbot, is there a facility then that they can be just transferred to an agent?
Yeah, no, that's a really common pattern, Marion. And then while I say it's a really common pattern, I guess the integration into, transfer to an agent all depends. There I go again on the depends, but on what the integration might look like. So, if you have like a live person chat system, then out of the box we provide integrations with things like Intercom or Live Person or Zendesk, I think, and they're pre-built integrations for Watson Assistant. If it's you're in a text-based interface, you're not after getting the question that you want, but you actually want to be able to initiate a telephone call, well then that can be done through a link that is a number that can be called, but that would be the end user would require that there is software on their system that would allow them to make that call from their browser out. So there are options there. It's a really common pattern. And it'd be one that we'd need to look into depending on the systems that we're looking to integrate with. As I say, if there's stuff like Live Person, Zendesk, Intercom, we do that out of the box. But if it's into a phone call, telephony system, we'd have to see what the system is and how we'd hook into that. But it's something we do. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Ronan.
Thanks, Marion.
Ronan, Dominic here from Fingal, and thanks very much for the presentation, and we're delighted to be working with you on getting this up and running for ourselves, and we're working on our various FAQs and so on to prepare for that. So looking forward to having run up and run shortly. One thing that I've asked you before, and you might, it's probably something that will be of interest to local authorities in general, would be other languages, and how other languages could actually be handled.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dominic. So you saw like on the Texas example that there was the ability to work with the assistant through English or Spanish. So we can cater for multiple languages. There's different ways in which we do that. We can do that either with a language translation service that's available from Watson that would do a translation on the fly, so that the language is detected, the language is translated, back to the language that the bot was built in, so that the query can be passed to it in a way that it understands, passed back, translated again, and returned to the end user in a way that, you know, is a language that they have a preference to use. So we can do that either on the fly, or a way in which you get more accurate responses is actually by having, you know, a bot that's built to cater for the same set of questions, but the same set of questions in different languages. So a few different ways in which we can do it, but definite abilities to work with different languages. Yeah, and again, that Austin one is a good example of both, you know, English and Spanish being available there. Yeah, thanks, Dominic. Great. Okay, so I have gone through all that I was hoping to go through. I see there's like 16 odd people still on the line. If anyone has any other questions, by all means jump in. If anyone fancies contacting me direct, that's my mail address. I'm happy to take any queries you might have. And with that, maybe I can hand back to Mark or to,
yeah. Thanks for that, Ronan. Hope everyone got what they wanted from it. As I said, as Ronan just said, if you have questions now, by all means, speak up. If not, if you think of questions after the fact, or if you want to talk about maybe getting more information, or you want to get it set up for your organization, by all means, get in touch with myself and we can organize one-on-ones and have a chat. But really appreciate everyone's time. So if we don't have any more questions, by all means, you are free to head on whenever you want.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone, appreciate
it. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye now.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ronan.
Thanks very much.